You know what? Everybody needs to be doing more of, including some story with their posts. Okay. Telling a little story to accentuate, to highlight the image that you've created. Now, admittedly, this can sometimes be a little bit easier. Well, it's not true. It's sometimes easier to do than others. But I believe this is something that every single solitary artist and photographer needs to be thinking about. Okay. Needs to be getting better at. How do you include some story with what you are posting such that it's a little bit more interesting than just a photograph, than just a piece of art? And, let me be clear about this. No one is saying that an individual photo of your art or your photography is not interesting. Okay. Of course, it's interesting. It's amazing. It's beautiful. You guys are incredible creators. The problem you have is that everybody is posting photos all day long on social media. Photo, 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 video, talking about the photo, 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 photo. And when you get into that type of scenario, it's really, really hard to stand out. It's really, really hard to make a connection. So what I figured I would do is I saw a post from a customer. A shout out to Ben, love Ben. He's been with us at Art Storefronts for a long time, and one of the things that he does that's really, really interesting is he runs around New York, okay, and he photographs water towers that are on top of buildings. I might as well just show this. So I'm gonna share this so that everyone can see this, and then I'm gonna rant a little bit more about story. Okay, so that is, an example of what he does. And do I have his Instagram pulled up? So he's got all these. There he is. He's got all these incredible. I'm gonna put this up here for a second. Photographs where he's run around Manhattan, because he lives in New York. His office is in New York. Um, he's got these incredible photos of these water towers that exist on top of the buildings, right? And they're beautiful photographs. They're framed correctly. The way the light shines off the buildings and the perspective, everything about it is great, right? Morning sun on brick in this case one. But what I want to see from Ben is way more story incorporated into what he's shooting. And I think a bunch of you guys can do this too. Like, get some more story into what's going on, right? So if we looked at this and it's like, let me just see what he has to say in terms of his story. I love the warmth of early morning sun on brick, right? Early Chelsea morning, New York City. And that is cool to me. And water towers are kind of cool to me. They're like fascinating, and I think most people probably don't know how they work or why they work or whether they even exist. But they have an incredible story to them. And I thought, like, okay, you guys all need more story. If you do it, your social media posts are going to stand out. They're going to get more engagement. You're going to end up selling more art. It's giving people an additional layer of depth in order to be able to get bonded to the piece that you're creating, right? And my goal here is to, like, what if I showed you how to do this in real time, how I would contemplate doing this? And as I tell you the story about the water towers, okay, and I'm even going to put it up on screen, watch how much more compelling the art becomes, because on its own, not that one, this one, on its own, it's just a photograph of the water tower, okay, on top of the building. The buildings look old, the water tower looks old. Okay, that's cool. It's an urban shot. But am I gonna stop? Am I gonna instantaneously go to his site? Am I gonna get mega connected? I might, but I also might not. I don't think it's gonna stop as many people as they would, right? And RPM illustrations, do people really read these stories? They do, and they will. Not everybody will, which is why don't worry about where you put the story, right? There's a bunch of different ways to do it. You can talk about the fact that the story is in the, let me get to that in the end. That's a great question though. I'm going to pin that question because I want to be able to answer it in depth after I do this, right? But how I would do this, okay, is I'm going to use AI. I know everyone's so scared of AI. It can be super, super helpful. So I'm in Chat GTP here, right? And I've got it pulled up, and I'm just going to do this. Tell me a little history about the water towers on top of buildings in downtown New York City. And it's going to convert my question into a question, or convert my voice into text, I should say. And boom, it's going to end up firing out this description, right? And okay, so great. Most people have seen how this works, right? And then what if I can't read it and show the photo at the same time? I could do this. Watch. Here's what I'll do. So I'm going to mute this. I'm going to add this. So you're looking at this instead of the phone. Water towers on top of building are a distinctive feature of New York City's skyline, particularly in downtown areas, and they serve a critical function in the city's water supply system. Here's a brief history and explanation of their origin. Origins and necessity. The need for water towers in New York City became apparent in the late 19th century as the city expanded vertically with the construction of taller buildings. In order to handle the supply to higher floors was a challenge, okay, and which could only push water up 6 stories. So regular water pressure only went up 6 stories. And so these water towers were created and installed on top of buildings in New York City in order to serve any floors that were above 6 feet high. What we're looking at one here is in Chelsea, in Manhattan. And what's super, super interesting about this is, one, we do not have enough water pressure to service everyone all the time because everyone takes a shower at the same time. And so what's interesting about water towers is when no one's using water, water is pumped all the way up into the tower. Then when everybody needs water, the water comes rushing out and everyone has pressure in their shower, right? And yes, somebody just said, why are they made out of wood? They're made out of wood because the wood can swell and prevent leaks, right? And you can see, historically, water towers were made from wood, a tradition that continues with many of New York's towers today. Although newer ones might be constructed from steel or concrete, the wooden construction is favored for its durability and insulating properties, which help keep the water from freezing in the winter and overheating in the summer. Now, if I edited that text down, right, and I made a really, really good version of that text, how much more compelling does this photograph get that you now understand what it does and why it exists? And then tell me what this building is and what's going on in terms of the corner of where this is in New York and some other landmarks that I might be able to glom onto, and then I could potentially go look at it, right? It makes the photograph so much more interesting. And any of you guys can do this, and all of you guys can do this. Like, what is the story? Every photograph, every piece of artwork has a story, okay? And if it's historical, like in Ben's case, like you have a bunch of copy already written that can explain it to you and why it's awesome, right? And anytime you can do this, you would be surprised at how much it elevates the quality and the caliber of the photograph, on how much it elevates the connection someone has to the piece of art itself, right? And RPM Illustrations is asking me, okay, well, tactically, what does this look like, right? Like, okay, I get this. I need to include some stories in there, but is anyone going to read it? And the answer is yes, all of the above. Like, once you make the copy goes everywhere. The copy can go on the actual product page on your actual website. The copy can go in the text portion of your post on Instagram. And oh, by the way, that is going to give Instagram in its algorithm a ton more information on what the hell people are looking at. Okay, Instagram knows already, but it's going to give it way more information. And in addition to that, you can narrate it, right? You can narrate, like, there are so many sites now where you can throw the audio into a site and instantaneously comes back with an incredible voice. All of you guys have seen this on Instagram, and makes it mega compelling. It makes it super interesting, right? Like, one of the things I do, I can show in a second, is I make these quote tiles and I throw a random voice in there, and it's awesome. So you can put it anywhere you want, right? And someone, Robert's like, there's going to be a Bigfoot in the trees behind you. Bigfoot, everybody's heard about him. No one's ever seen him, Robert. No one's ever seen him. So you can do it tactically like that. You could make a reel where you're narrating it, right? You could talk about it yourself. But if you start doing this, trust me, you are going to get more action than what he has here, which is just admittedly not that much, right? Like, I love the warmth of the early morning sun on the brick. I'm now focusing on that, but I want to know, what building am I looking at? What's the building behind? When was it constructed? What is the story here? Like, what can I get? What can I get geek out on, right? And like, look, not all of us are going to be like, oh my gosh, it's a water tower. This is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. But how did you have to get this shot? What time did you have to show up? How did you get the exact positioning? Did you get yelled at by a security guard? All of these sorts of things, I think, are just super, super fascinating. And you just never know who your audience is going to be when you give them a story. When it's just a photograph, they're going to see that photograph and they're going to keep moving. That's what the numbers say. That's what the odds say, because we're all on the little, just flick our thumb, social media hamster wheel, flick, 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 flick. Oh yeah, okay, whatever, flick. But if there's a story, you actually have the opportunity to draw somebody in. And not enough people are doing this, and so many more of you guys could. And you're like, okay, I'm not getting a ton of traction. I'm not getting a ton of engagement on Instagram, on Facebook. What's going on? I don't understand. Contemplate inserting some story. And when you do, everything will start to change. You will start hooking more people with the post, more people will be interested in, more people want to interact with it, and not enough of you are doing it. So that is my quick advice for today. I want to see some stories, you guys. Now I got to go send this to Ben. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest.